Okay. Hello, hopefully this is working, and I should be now live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube all at the same time, hopefully. Great, it looks like YouTube was, sorry, Facebook was a little bit slow, but here we are. So good to see you all. Hello, hello, thank you for joining. So I think probably this time is probably going to be my new time for doing the lives, because I now have actually a class on Thursdays. Så Thursday time slot for me isn't as easy to do. In fact, it isn't possible for me to do. Ja, det är kul att se det också. Ja, tack. Ja, bra, tack. Det går bra. Bok. Pozdrav iz Hrvatska. Aha. Hvala pitanje. Sve u redu u Hrvatskoj. Let's see. Nice to see you all coming. So, thank you. Pozdrav. Pozdrav iz Slovenije. Good to see you then. Kako gre? Sve u redu. V redu. So, nice to see you all. So, yeah, I'm going to make this. Cześć, Wojtek. Cześć. See you, salam. Salam. Practice speaking with me. Actually, if anybody here wants to speak to me in person, like directly, what I can suggest you do is come to the Polyglot Conference in just under 3 weeks' time. If you go to polyglotconference.com, you can sign up, and yeah, you'll be able to find me. I'll be around for 10 days in the room actually to speak. And I want to talk to as many people as possible. I enjoy talking to people. So yeah, please join me, and everyone else that's coming. It'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be on a donation basis, so it's not like it costs you a lot of money to come and join either. So I hope it will be available to as many people as possible. You will need to sign up, and there's an option to donate money to help support the work that we do, and the work that we'll continue to do in the future for the conference. Otherwise, yeah, it's open to as many people as possible. Ni hao, Jonathan. Ni hao ma, ha. Okay, let me see if I can. So I didn't get many questions this week, probably because I totally forgot to ask for questions far in advance, or far enough in advance. I only thought about it this morning, and the reason is that it's a very, very busy time at the moment. So obviously I work as well, full time, doing other things, but also I have started some classes, and the classes are really cool. I really enjoy them, because I want to make sure I start them, even though probably time-wise it's not the best time for me to start classes, because I've just got so much work to do, and then with the conference as well. But I thought it was worth starting now, so that I have some fun things to do over the winter months, and I want to make sure that I keep active and do some new projects. So yeah, I'm doing some classes, which is really cool, and it's nice to sort of talk to different people, and meet new people. I really enjoy that, and that's one of the reasons why I learn languages anyway. But yeah, and one of the questions was whether or not there are any languages that I have studied that I've decided just to leave, and I didn't like them. And there are languages that I stopped studying just because clearly you can't study over 50 languages and keep studying over 50 languages forever and ever. It's just not feasible. You would never get anywhere with anything, and you'd never get anything done. It's just also the time it takes to study so many languages. Salut. So I would say that, yeah, there are languages I've Miram Brahma Sieni. Mir? Okay. Unfortunately, I don't speak Korean, but yes, hello. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Ni hao, nice to see you as well. So yeah, it's strange because obviously, I mean, I know sort of the thought is that potentially you can saludos desde Costa Rica, hola, ¿qué tal? The thought is that maybe you just carry on learning lots and lots of languages and just keep adding to them, and that's it. Unfortunately, yeah, it's not quite so possible because we have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to go to work, we have to do things with family, friends, and we have lives as well. So for me, what I do is I try and learn languages that I can realistically use or use again, whether it's for trips and things. So there are a number of languages I've started for a specific reason and stopped because that reason has then ended, and I don't need it anymore for that. Then some of those I've revived. So at the moment, I've been reviving for the past few months my Indonesian. I studied it to go to Indonesia. Didn't really use it after that because I don't really need it for anything. But I just decided over the summer I wanted to see how I could get back into my Indonesian, and I really liked it. So I've got into that again. But there are a number of other languages where I've done that as well. Finnish, I did the same thing. Latvian, I did the same thing. And I just could have learned them for a bit and then left them, and I didn't worry about forgetting them or anything like that. I just sort of let them fade. And from time to time, I may go back to them. I don't know. Hopefully, I'd like to think I'd go back to them. I like the languages, but I never dropped a language because I didn't like the language. It was more because my situation changed or I had to focus on something else. How about you? I don't know if any of you can identify with what I'm saying. Does it sound a bit strange? But yeah, I'm very much into this whole, I learn a language for a specific reason, and then if I don't need the reason, it goes away. As much as I love the language, sometimes that's enough, but often actually I need to have real focus on something that I need. Guten Abend, hello. You just got out of a Wikiton stream and they're interested in working with me. Could we talk about this later? Yes, we can, Carlos. Of course we can. I'll be very happy to talk to you about that. If you want to send me an email, you can reach me. So I guess the Polyglot Conference at gmail.com is probably a good email address to use at the moment. I'm checking that very regularly for obvious reasons. Do I speak Swedish better than Icelandic? Tim, yeah, I'd probably say I do. Yeah, I'd probably say my Swedish is better than Icelandic. How did you start learning a language like Vietnamese, being an English speaker? Probably get some books that I like. So there are some really cool books in Vietnam, but there's also a really cool YouTube channel actually for Vietnamese. I met the guy who created it. I'm just going to see if I can find it for you. But this is Southern Vietnamese that he does, but it's really cool. And he's got loads of videos on Vietnamese. South Vietnamese. Let's see if I can find it for you now. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's called SVFF, that's the one. And I would honestly, this guy I really like. He makes really cool videos. He's also got courses that he has too. I'm not affiliated with any of the people, by the way, that I recommend, but this is the Vietnamese one. I've just put it in their docs so that you can have a look. Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you, and yeah, we can take that further with the Wikitons. Sounds very cool. So while we're on the stream, paused for me. So it sounded like you just said whether there were any languages I'd studied. Yeah, Isabel, are there any languages you'd studied that you gave up, or like just because you just didn't like them? And for me, absolutely not. But there are languages I've given up because my reason for learning them has changed, or I've had to focus on something else. Bonjour Jean-Baptiste, ça va bien? Yeah, this is so Chris, yeah, this is gonna replace the Thursday. So on Thursdays now, I actually have language lessons at the time that we had the the talk. Actually, this Thursday now, just gone, I was at the Memorize 10th anniversary party, but normally I've started doing some classes in languages that I speak already but want to improve and revisit. So on Thursday I have actually a Welsh class to practice my Welsh, and also I have a Turkish class to improve my Turkish and to get my Turkish to a higher level. So yeah, I started a B2 Turkish class. Well, that's apparently what it is. I don't know exactly, but that's what it's advertised as. You're very welcome, Docs. I'm glad I could help. Any tips for learning Indigenous languages like Cherokee, Navajo, Nahuatl, Maya? Okay, yeah, actually, do you know what? One of the things I'm doing, I'm working on a project at the moment, and I hope to announce this at the conference. So I want to make things a bit easier for some of the Indigenous languages, and I want to promote them. So if anybody's out there listening to this and you want to promote an Indigenous language too, I'm happy to be contacted to see how many of these we can actually work on together to give more of a voice and to allow people to learn them, to strengthen their communities internationally as well as on a local level. I think the more things that we have available to learn them, the better. But yes, there are things available. It just depends on the language. They're all very different. ¿Cómo encontrar tiempo para practicar tanta lengua? ¿Cuántas lenguas o cuántas lenguas treina por dia? Ai, perdão. Para praticar tantas línguas. Então, para praticar tantas línguas, eu tenho que fazer um esforço para fazer isso. Fazendo lives agora, como por exemplo, para mim é uma ajuda bastante grande, porque tenho oportunidade para praticar muitas línguas assim. Mas também para o trabalho, eu trabalho com muitas línguas também na casa. Falamos 5 línguas na casa, e também fora da casa, na cidade, pode ser, durante todo o ano eu tenho contato com 10 línguas, assim, e para o trabalho, acho que são com 15 línguas, assim, sem fazer um esforço, eu tenho contato com uns 25 línguas durante todo o ano. Então, por isso é muito mais fácil. E depois disso eu tenho que fazer um pouco de esforço para ter mais tempo para outras línguas também. Como agora com as classes que tenho, as aulas que tenho para as línguas, novas línguas que estou estudando agora. Mas para mim não é uma questão realmente de quanto tempo, quantas horas, porque é uma coisa que eu faço somente assim, todo dia, eu penso nas línguas diferentes. Para mim é uma coisa muito natural. Uso as línguas para viver, para sobreviver. Hello. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on some of these questions. I do apologize. If I miss anything, please feel free to write it again, and I will do my best to catch up. I know a little bit of Persian, so somebody asked me about Persian. Salam. Khube. Khubam. Apa kabar? Baik. Terima kasih. Apa kabar? Okay, you see. I'm very well, thank you. How are you? Yes, thank you very much. Well, that's a nice lesson, so. Okay. Yeah, Vietnamese is a challenging one, but I think it's a beautiful language as well. Like I love every language, so it's like it almost sounds ridiculous saying it's beautiful. I like every language, but yeah, it's nice. How do you get fluent in a language? Okay, do you know German? Yes, I know German. Ich kann Deutsch. Ja, natürlich. To get fluent really depends on what you mean by fluent. So, what do you mean by fluent? First of all, I think I need to ask. You mean like knowing everything? Or do you mean just being able to communicate your ideas in German with mistakes? What would you mean by that? What dialect of Spanish would you recommend learning? Whichever one you have most contact with. Any dialect in any language, I always recommend learning the language that you should, the one that you're closest to, whether you have friends or family, or you live there or live near there, or you visit the place. So for me, I learned actually Andalusian Spanish was the kind of dialect that I learned of Spanish, the pronunciation I learned. And that's because I lived with people from Malaga, so I used to have to speak that way. I sort of imitate what's around you, I guess. But then I have learned words from and expressions from other types of Spanish too. And you find you do that with a language like Spanish, you start going to other Spanish-speaking countries. So for me, Venezuela was the other one I spent time in, and then Mexico, obviously, with the conference. We were going to have the conference in Mexico this year, and now hopefully next year we'll be in Mexico. So yeah, I quite like Mexican Spanish as well. Although I shouldn't say just Mexican Spanish, because there are lots of different varieties of Mexican Spanish. It's all very different, actually. Quite a lot of different sounding Mexican Spanish. So yeah, I'd say whichever one you have the most contact with. Okay. Let me see if there are any others. Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. That's very kind of you. I'm glad that you get motivation out of these, of what I do. That means a lot to me. Don't you want to take Arabic classes up? I mean, like, seriously. Yeah, I've done Arabic before. I've actually studied Arabic. I've done Arabic. It sounds terrible. I've studied Arabic before. So I've studied it on 3 occasions, but the need for me to speak Arabic went away. I was supposed to go and study in Damascus was the first time. Then I was supposed to work in Beirut, and that didn't happen either. And then I decided on a third occasion that I might have contact with some of the refugees passing through, and that just didn't happen either. So unfortunately, yeah, my Arabic didn't ever get very far. But yeah, at some point I'd like to. Do you speak Swahili? No, unfortunately I don't. I've never had chance to learn or use Swahili. I've never really heard much of it spoken actually either. Only, what you see sort of online. How do you decrease your processing time in a foreign language until it's about the same as your mother tongue? You mean finding the mot juste? So I think with time, Byron, to be honest, and time and practice, there are definitely now instances where a word will come to me in another language even before English because it makes a better fit or it makes more sense. It depends on the language and it depends on how much you're using it and what you're using it for. So yeah, it would really depend. It also depends on what I'm speaking most of the time. Okay, what do you think from your experience exist any cultural differences between Icelanders and Swedes? Oh yeah, for sure. Swedes and Icelanders are quite different. Icelanders are more like kind of Italians that found themselves in the north, the very north. Icelanders tend to, if you do business with Icelanders, they're very much phone people. So if you send Icelanders an email, often it doesn't really work. You have to call Icelanders. They like to be called. They like to speak. They like to do business in that kind of way. And I picked this up really when I took the conference to Iceland. Yeah, I had to. If you didn't speak to them, if you weren't there in front of them or calling them on the phone, you would wait for weeks or months to even get a reply to an email. Whereas Swedes, I think, probably a bit more typically sort of Northern European in that way that they would be sort of more, okay, if people wrote an email, it counts the same way. Whereas Iceland, yeah, it's kind of more like an Italian type of thing where they talk a lot to each other, and that's how they get things done. Okay. Můžete mi prosím něco říct v ruštině? Ano. Ano. Я не знаю, что ты хочешь, что ты желаешь слушать от меня по-русски. Это очень трудно, потому что я надо читать по-чешски, а потом говорить по-русски. Это очень сложно для меня, но когда я говорю, если ты хочешь писать По-русски это бы было очень лучше для меня и очень легко. Но когда я, я думаю, что да, это очень сложно, да. Ты знаешь. Okay. Well, where have you lived 3 or more months? Oh, Carlos, lots of places. So 3 or more months, I've lived in, let's start here, okay, obviously the UK, France, Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Macedonia, or North Macedonia as it's now called, Bosnia, I think, Moldova, where else? That's 9, right? 9. And then also with Bulgaria and where else? I guess Poland was close, close to that, but yeah, not altogether. So yes, it's quite a few places I've lived for more than 3 months, and I've spent months in like a month at a time in a number of places as well. Often I understand all the words Swedish sentences, but still don't sentences. Probably because Swedish doesn't have the same cases. Advice: no, Swedish doesn't have the same cases. Swedish is a bit easier than Icelandic, I think, to speak, just sort of because of the case system. Deutsch ist unbedingt eine nützliche Sprache, ja, ganz genau. Das finde ich auch. Dokus und Nachrichten, ja. Ich finde Deutsch auch sehr, sehr, es ist eine sehr gute Sprache. Für mich war es als eigentlich ja die beste Sprache, würde ich sagen, die ich bisher gelernt habe, weil ich die Sprache auch für meine Arbeit sehr oft, sehr häufig benutzt habe. Ich finde die Sprache auch sehr, sehr cool, muss ich sagen. Naja. Okay, let me see. Nice to see so many of you coming. Thank you for joining. So let me see if I can see any more questions here. On italki, there are more than 4,000 teachers and tutors for English language, but sadly not even one teacher for the beautiful Latvian language. Any comment? There were, Tim, are there not anymore? There was, I studied Latvian on italki. My teacher was from Latvia. Before I went to Riga, I spent 2 months in Riga, and my teacher, we had lessons for about 3 or 4 months before I went, and then while I was there as well, we had lessons. And she was from there. I thought there were more, but maybe they've gone. I don't know. It's good to see you too, Greg. Thank you. Als je ouder wordt, vind ik dat je op minder talen gaat focussen. Ja, op een dieper niveau. Ja, natuurlijk. Voor mij is het gewoon zo dat ik wil natuurlijk meer talen leren. En ik vind het mooi ook projecten te doen. Dus niet alleen maar gewoon talen leren om een nieuwe taal te leren, maar gewoon een beetje dieper in een andere taal ook te kunnen gaan is ook mooi. En dat doe ik momentaal met Albaans, met Turks, met Grieks ook. En dat vind ik ook gaaf, want ik kan die talen ook hier in Skopje wel spreken. Dan zo is het mooi om zo wat te doen. Maar dan heb ik wel tijd voor nodig. En dan heb ik ook andere dingen die ik moet leren en ook doen voor mijn werk en zo. En natuurlijk mijn familie. Dus veel tijd heb ik helaas niet. Maar het is wel mooi om te doen. Okay, let me see. Kargatis en kartvoleni itzi. No, unfortunately, I don't speak Georgian. I've studied Georgian before, but I don't speak it. I sort of had to finish my Georgian maybe was about over 10 years ago, I guess. That I did it for a semester at university in Malmö in Sweden, and then I stopped. I enjoyed it, but it's not a language I have any contact with, unfortunately. Guten Abend. What do I think about the reverse, the decline of language learning in UK schools? Hugh, that's a very good question. Great, Gary, that's hilarious. Okay. Tim, yes, I did live in Moldova. So in terms of language learning in the UK, what I think of it and the downturn, it's sad. And because language learning isn't just, okay, people say about, you can get a job, you can do this and you can do that. Of course, there are opportunities of language learning, but I think learning a language actually is more than that as well. I think just on a personal level, when you can understand what it's like to speak another language and you can understand how it is for somebody learning your language, it just gives you a better, deeper understanding of the human condition. And I think ways to see the world, ways to hear news and interpret stories, things going on around the world. Clearly, there are other benefits, and then also there's the neurological benefits of speaking another language actively, and that's that. Obviously, they've seen that you're about 4.5 years. So there are health benefits to it. Also, I think that it helps you just to switch between languages. It's quite a fun task to do. It's kind of like mental gymnastics. So yeah, I find it sad. Yeah. Educado de indigenae infanoi estas uno el la gravaj temoj en la kursoj kiu mi gvidas en la universitato. Mi do atendos la detalon de via projekto. Dankon, mi tre ŝatus tion kaj mi esperas ke mi eblos fari iomete por la temo en la futuro. Mi ŝajnas al mi tre grava afero en la tuta mondo, kaj vi eblas ankaŭ skribi emailon. Mi tre volonte legos tion al vi. Vi havas ankaŭ mian email adreson. Ĝi estas Polyglot Conference @gmail.com. Mi tute ne scias en Esperanto. Mi nur uzas ĝin en alia eventoj en la mondo. Mi tute ne uzas ĝin en mia laboro, kaj mi ne havas la vortojn bedaŭrinde, sed mi provos paroli iomete pli bone ankaŭ Esperanto. Har du varit i Sverige i så fall? Okej, nej, det har jag aldrig gjort. Så jag har varit bara hur många gånger? Bara en gång, bara 5 dagar där. Och jag var en vecka och så jag 2 eller 3 gånger i Stockholm, men det var bara en dag, 2 dagar eller någonting. Så inte så länge. Men ja. Nedankinde, Giri, nedankinde. Your experience when it comes to raising multilingual children, how many languages would you limit the input? A very good question. I have been trying to expose mine to 4, but Polish seems to lag behind. Okay, lagging behind is not a problem, Greg. I would say that with children, really, being conscious of the fact that they have to learn a lot of other languages, they need to learn maths, they need to learn science, and you only really need to do that in a language. You don't need to get your children to do every single thing in every single language. It's a bit mean to do that, really. I didn't do that, and I still communicate adequately well in a number of languages, so I would never expect my daughter to do that. So for all I did was I spoke to her in English and French, and then obviously Macedonian with my wife, and she speaks Macedonian with her too. And then I did an hour of play a day in German and Spanish, and that was basically it. And yeah, now she understands all 5 languages. She speaks them to different levels, but that's not the end of the world. The most important thing is it became easy for her to understand them. The grammar is quite automatic, if that makes sense, to understand what the differences are. She won't get it all perfectly right, of course, in Spanish and German, but she knows the languages. Yeah. Did I speak Moldovan, Romanian, or Russian in Moldova? I spoke Romanian and Russian in Moldova. And it was very strange in Moldova. I lived in Chisinau, and you'd call a taxi in Chisinau, and they'd answer the phone, and they'd say "Bună ziua," and then they talk in Romanian, and then they say, like 5 minutes later, they'd call you back to confirm the taxi, and then you could guarantee they would they would say "Здравствуйте, ваш taxi," and then they'd speak to you in Russian about the taxi that was coming and confirm it. And they always did that in Chisinau. They'd change it. Whatever language they spoke when they first answered the phone would be the opposite language to what they confirmed the taxi. And very often I had that experience. It was quite strange. I enjoyed it. Ok. Quais são as línguas em que você atinge um nível mais alto de compreensão e aprendeu mais vocabulário? Em quais você conseguiu C2? Isso é muito difícil porque não existia níveis assim com C2 em todas as línguas que eu falo. Agora existem, mas é muito difícil dizer, porque eu não tenho feito nível C2 em nenhum. Mas, sim, para mim, na casa eu falo macedônio, inglês, francês, espanhol e alemão. Então, são as línguas que eu falo muito bem. E também holandês também falo antes. Se eu sei usar, se falar e comunicar-me nessa ideia em uma língua, eu fico muito contente com isso. Okay, let me see. I'm going to see if I've got any more questions here. How do you learn Russian grammar without giving up? That's a really cool question. Yeah, Russian grammar without giving up. Slowly but surely, learning what you need when you need it, and not getting so hung up on focusing on tables of like grammar. It just gets a bit crazy if you do that. Yeah. Have you ever worked as an interpreter? No, I haven't. But I studied interpreting at university in France, and I had to interpret for that course from French to Spanish and Spanish back to French. And I did quite well. I think I got like 17 out of 20 for the course, which is pretty cool. At university in France, like there's quite a high mark in France. I did quite well, yeah. But I don't think I'm particularly cut out to be an interpreter. Говориш slovensko. Govorim malo slovensko. Učil sem slovenščino v Ljubljani in v Skopju, italki. Ampak zdaj ne govorim mnogo slovensko. to je to. My biggest fear with Slovene is that when I start speaking it, I go into Serbian. Because I've not used it for so long and I don't want to offend you if you're listening to this and going, oh, that's terrible. I have a question. What are you doing for a living? So my real work, I work with social media and languages, so I give advice on international multilingual and multicultural projects in different languages. That's what I do most of the time. I also do, I work on the Polyglot Conference, although it's been a hobby for me, and it's not my day job, but I've been doing that now for event management for about 10 years, all in all. And I enjoy doing event management as well. It's a lot of fun. And then I guess I've taught languages to children and adults in the past. So yeah, I've done quite a few different things, and I used to actually way back when I was a network engineer, believe it or not. But yeah, I've done quite a few different things. How can you practice any language without having a partner and yourself? Sorry for my English. Your English is fine. So practicing on your own. You've got things on the internet that you can watch, and you can maybe record your opinion, write down your opinion, use writing, use recordings, make videos, ask for feedback. If you've got no one to talk to, you could also practice talking to yourself as well. and reading things is really important, because otherwise you just end up saying the same things over and over again in your head, and then you don't really improve doing that. You just you stagnate. Yeah. Vinicius, hi, say hi to me. Hi to you. Hello. Yes, I want to know. Yes, okay. What more can I do if I'm a polyglot? You just carry on. Unfortunately, there's no prize. It's funny because when people say about, you know, am I a polyglot? Are you a polyglot? What do you learn the languages for? You learn them because you like them, and if you're learning lots of languages, it's because you like them. There's absolutely no point at all in doing this if you don't like it. I mean, and I think even learning one language is fun. I don't think I would say I've met people who only speak one language, like English, for example, even just English, who have got so into English, they've read so much, they've got into the etymology of words, and they know so much about the language. I actually find people like that fascinating too. I really enjoy meeting people who know about their own languages, and even if they know no other language, I find that quite interesting myself. Zdravo, kako si? Super sam, hvala. Paul, happy birthday. Paul, it's your birthday today, isn't it? I wrote on your wall, happy birthday. Hope you have a lovely day. Привет. Ay, привет. Okay. Okay. Yes, let me see. I can see I've got a few questions that are the same in a few different places. Thoughts on endangered languages, and have I learned any? Yes, I have. So I've studied a number of languages that are either endangered or vulnerable. So right now, okay, this is something you've got to keep to yourselves. I'm putting on the internet. So italki had a Quechua teacher appear on the site, and I just couldn't resist having a lesson just to see what it was like. The teacher's so nice, and I really liked learning Quechua with her that I've just carried on learning it. I'm not taking it very fast, so I'm taking it really slowly. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy doing it. And this is my little book with my Quechua words. It's quite cool. So alinyam is like aliñachu is hola, hello. It's quite funny because I learned this in Spanish, so my notes are in Spanish and Quechua, they're not in English. So excuse me if I can't think about it. So here we go. Here's some of my Quechua. Nuhapa sutimi Richard. My name is Richard. Okay. Nuha reunido suyamantam kani. I am from the United Kingdom. And so I can say at the moment, Nuha Skopje pim piani. I live in Skopje. There we go. So, and I can say a few other things as well. I have things written down because I'm still at the very beginning stages of this language. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And there are a number of languages like that I've studied in the past different projects. Ladino is one, for example, I really liked. Learning some Ladino. Unfortunately, my Dino now is not very good. But yeah, there are lots of languages like that I've enjoyed studying. Do I know Turkish? Yes, I do. I study Turkish. I still do. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, nice to see you. Let me see. Are there any other questions I can answer? Okay. Russian grammar is not difficult. I'm slow. Yes, of course. For you, Tim, I think it's probably going to be very easy. Thank you, Rasmus. That's very kind of you. I think that input is important. Okay, I'm going to go back to this. Do young Moldovans speak Russian? Depends on the young Moldovan. I've not been back to Moldova in a long time. When I was there, it's like 13 years ago, so it's a long time ago. It's 12, 13 years ago, yeah. I think that the input is better for studying with a book grammar. I think input is good anyway, because the more input you have, the more exposure you have to the language. So you're reinforcing the language, whether it's grammar, words that you already know that you're improving and sort of reinforcing, or just the sounds of the language and the melody of it. Yeah. Nice to see you too, Rasmus. Thank you. Selon vous, quel sera l'avenir de l'anglais en Europe après le Brexit? Très bonne question, je ne sais pas. À mon avis, l'anglais va continuer, hein, parce que en fait, c'est la langue qu'on parle, c'est la langue qu'on utilise partout. Hein. Si par exemple, je sais pas, si quelqu'un de la France va en vacances, je sais pas où, il va parler quoi? C'est français. Il veut parler sûrement pas français. Bon, il va essayer peut-être, mais après, qu'est-ce qu'on utilise? C'est l'anglais. C'est très souvent l'anglais qu'on utilise. Malheureusement, mais c'est comme ça. Donc, à mon avis, l'Europe va continuer avec l'anglais. Je vois aucun autre moyen pour l'Union européenne après le Brexit. Russian grammar is not difficult. Right? Tim, for you, I don't think it is. Salut Richard, c'est un plaisir d'entendre vos pensées concernant les langues étrangères. Quelle université vous avez fait en France? En France, c'était Jean Moulin III, Lyon. Donc, je suis allé là-bas. Et puis après, j'ai fait... En France, c'est tout en fait, pas d'autre. Puis en Espagne, en Italie, et puis en République tchèque, et en Suède, et au Royaume-Uni, bien sûr. J'ai fait mes études. Un peu partout, quoi. Ouais, mais Jean Moulin III, à Lyon. If you had to start a new language from scratch and you had a partner native in the target language, what method would you use to practice with them? Well, it would depend on what they do and what language it is. So at the moment with Quechua, the teacher just has notes that she shares, and we go through her notes. We go through what she wants to do. I kind of like people to do what they're comfortable with as a teacher, because I think it's important for me not to sort of dictate too much. If I've got a teacher who needs to be led, you find out quite quickly when you're having a lesson if they like to be led because they don't know what you want to do, and then maybe I'll give them something that I think will work well for me. But yeah, otherwise it will depend on the language, it depends on the teacher. I'm happy to be flexible in my lessons. Do you notice in Moldova differences between Moldovan language and Tim? So when I was there, people used to joke about Moldovan Romanian because they brought out a Moldovan Romanian dictionary that people saw as a bit of a joke in Moldova, and they used to laugh about it. They tend to say, the people I met tend to say they speak Romanian, not Moldovan. So they're Moldovan citizens and they speak either Russian or Romanian or Gagauz or maybe something else. But it's Romanian pretty much. They have a different accent. Sprechen Sie auf Portugiesisch? Eigentlich nicht, nein. Also ab und zu. Hier im Internet schon, aber also auf meiner Arbeit, da muss ich dann schon lesen, aber sprechen ja kaum eigentlich. Es war eigentlich nie so, dass ich so viel Portugiesisch gesprochen habe. Es ist immer so gewesen. Also für die Arbeit musste ich immer was lesen oder was sagen, vielleicht ab und zu, aber so eine Menge sprechen oder so nie. Do I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast? Do you know I don't, Byron? I should make a note of that and see what it is. What's it about? Tell me. Someone asked a great question, not sure if you answered. So I'll ask it myself. How to increase processing speed? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I think just speaking it as much as possible, Rasmus. So I found that with every language I've learned, really it just depends on how much you're using the language and how quickly it becomes automatic or natural, I guess. So yeah, that was what I'd say. Otra cosa, Richard, ¿ok? ¿Has abandonado el aprendizaje de algún idioma? Sí, muchas veces, porque si no tengo no tengo más el por qué aprender un idioma, pues tengo que dejarlo porque no tengo tanto tiempo durante todo el día para trabajar, estar con mi familia, organizar la conferencia políglota, y todo, y dormir, y comer, y todo. Así que a veces sí que tengo proyectos de 5 meses, pues un mes, 2 meses, 5 meses, hasta 5 meses. Y luego tengo que abandonar el idioma porque no puedo seguir adelante con 50 idiomas así, ¿no? Sería imposible porque tengo que dormir también. Pero sí, pero no es porque no quiero continuar, es porque es que realmente aprender un idioma hasta un cierto punto está bien para entender cómo funciona el idioma, qué tal está tener esto, no sé, una idea de cómo funciona, cómo decir lo que tengo en la cabeza en otro idioma. Y hasta este punto está bien, pero más tarde, para hablar muy, muy bien, no tiene, no tiene mucho sentido porque si no tengo el idioma en mi vida así naturalmente, en la ciudad donde vivo y tal y cual, no hay por qué. Tienes que dormir y comer. Sí, no hay. Sabes muy bien. A veces mola mogollón. ¿Te acuerdas nada de esto? A ver, otra cosa. A ver. Te saltaste mi primera pregunta. Sí. Ay, perdón. Hay cosas que no logras entenderle a los nativos en los idiomas que hablan. A veces sí, porque hay cosas culturales, ¿no? Porque yo no soy de este país, yo soy del Reino Unido y sigo siendo británico, así que mi cultura, sí, mi cultura en mi ser, en mi alma, es mi cultura británica porque fui a la escuela en inglés en el Reino Unido, con la tele en inglés en el Reino Unido, con las bromas, con las personas, con mi familia y todo en inglés. Así que no puedo lograr saber todo de todos los países. Sería imposible. Creo que a lo mejor para una persona puedes vivir no sé cuántos años. Yo, por ejemplo, llevo 15 años hablando macedonés en casa con mi mujer. Yo sé bastante del idioma, sé bastante también de la cultura, del pasado, de lo que había en la tele, de la música, también incluso los otros idiomas que había también en Yugoslavia, pero de vez en cuando sí que voy aprendiendo también, escuchando cosas nuevas, porque claro, no sabes, nunca sabes lo que no sabes, si tiene sentido. Y eso es que a veces te salen cosas que no sabías que no sabías. Y eso es normal. Um, it's really random from Comanche Native Americans to physics to the war on drugs worldwide. Okay, Oprah for men. He's compared to Oprah for men. That's hilarious. How do you keep similar languages separate? With a lot of practice, Rasmus. So the Scandinavian family, for example, what I find is some languages, because I don't practice them enough, they do merge over a period of time. So my Norwegian's the one that normally turns back into Swedish. Danish tends to stay because the pronunciation is so different. It will get Swedishified, because Swedish is my main Scandinavian language, but Danish tends to stay. But generally what I try and do is practice. If I want to keep them, I try and practice the languages involved that are similar as often as much as possible. And that's how I do it. But it takes a lot of time and practice. Have I seen the series Dark? No, I haven't, Barry, I've not seen it. Have I been to the Faroe Islands? Yes, I have, Tim, and I really enjoyed it. A ver, ¿algún momento tenías síndrome de impostor en algún momento de tus estudios? Sí, claro. Yo creo que es normal, ¿eh? Es que es normal tener ese síndrome de impostor, porque a veces sí que tengo eso a veces también, incluso con el macedonés. A veces Es que hablo muy bien, pero a veces sí que estoy en una situación, no sé, por ejemplo, en una boda y no sé de pe a pa cantar todas las canciones. Es que me siento es muy raro porque las entiendo bien. Ah, entiendo la letra, entiendo todo y sé cantar algunas canciones también, pero no he aprendido de pe a pa todas las canciones típicas en macedonés y me gustaría hacerlo y a lo mejor un día a lo mejor lo va a hacer. Pero sé cantar alguna cosa, pero eso es una cosa que alguien de aquí sabe, generalmente sabe. No todo, no todo. Síndrome de imposter es cuando tienes esto de... Es como hablas algo o sabes hacer algo, pero como si que fuera mentira en tu cabeza. Cree que pues es como un actor, ¿no? Que lo hago, pero no lo sé hacer de verdad. Y eso sí que es un poco así. Y algunos expertos sí que tienen este síndrome que se siente como que no fuera real, como si no fuera, sí, la verdad, una cosa verdadera en su vida. How hard is Welsh for you to learn for English learners from Southern England? Not so hard, actually. Welsh is probably the easiest, one of the easiest of the Celtic languages. So yeah, Welsh is fairly straightforward to communicate in. So yeah, go for Welsh if you want to learn Welsh. Not so difficult. Just to get used to the and the and you're fine. Ok, a ver, otra pregunta. ¿Sueles dedicarle un tiempo determinado a cada idioma? Con el tiempo olvides algunas cosas en estos idiomas. Sí, claro, siempre estoy olvidando cosas diariamente, así que eso es normal, forma parte de la vida también. Así que lo acepto y está bien. Pues con las horas es un poco difícil determinar horas porque tengo clases, por ejemplo, que tengo y tengo algunos periodos durante el día para estudiar mis idiomas. Por ejemplo, durante la mañana, antes de empezar el trabajo, es que estudio algo o leo lo que había estudiado durante la clase anterior, algo así. Y pues continúo así, pero así como horas y horas, no, porque como que tengo que utilizar mis idiomas para mi trabajo y para mi vida cotidiana, no tengo por qué hacer algo muy así en plan preparado. Linguas latinas loqueris. I don't speak Latin. I've studied some Latin, but I understand some, obviously, but I don't speak it. I would like to learn. Do you speak it, Christy, as well? If you speak Icelandic, is it difficult to learn the Faroese language? All right, it's not as difficult now. It helps a lot. The pronunciation is quite different for Faroese. So, how do they say? Eg tosi, eg sindur Faroeskum. I speak a little bit of Faroese. They have interesting cases where they don't have them in Icelandic. So in Icelandic, to say the same thing, that means I speak a little like Faroese. In Icelandic, you'd say, ég tala svolítið íslensku. So you'd still use the accusative. Whereas in Faroese, you go, eitt sindur is a little bit, of Faroeskum, of the genitive, Faroese, which is more like sort of English. I speak a bit of English. We just don't have the case endings. Welche Sprache lernst du im Moment? Also viele eigentlich. Also ich lerne jetzt gerade eigentlich ein bisschen Quechua und ja, also Persisch auch noch, aber sehr langsam. Ich meine, ich habe so viel Arbeit, ich kann nicht so also ich kann wirklich nicht so viel Zeit benutzen, um die Sprachen zu beherrschen oder zu lernen. Es geht ja gar nicht, aber ja, im Moment ja die und dann auch noch, ich versuche jetzt mein Albanisch, Türkisch und Griechisch zu verbessern und ja, das sind eigentlich also die Sprachen, die ich im Moment lerne. Ähm, ok, da Deutsch para poder, ok. Piensa que es relevante la titulación DAF zum Deutschland oder IELTS English para poder estudiar en países que esta habla o asimismo en su vida diaria. Para mí no tengo que tener ningún certificado para mi vida ahora mismo porque he estudiado bastante y creo que ya está bien. Sigo estudiando solo para mí, para mi vida, porque quiero, pero no creo que vaya a pasar un examen así. Ya, yo creo que ya está bien para mí. No me hace falta. Pero en general sí que buscan, a veces las universidades buscan algún título, algún certificado. Así que sí que es importante para algunas cosas, pero para mí personalmente no, ya no. Is it possible to learn a foreign language by reading and writing dictionary daily? If it is, and you find it works for you, Roman, let me know. I would doubt it. I doubt it. I've never met anybody who's learnt a language by reading and writing a dictionary. Well, I should say, learnt a language that they've told me they've done that and they've done it well. It's a very strange way to learn it because just to give you an idea, some of the translations I found in dictionaries actually are incorrect. So they're not perfect. And I think you need to see language in context to understand how it works. So I think just seeing a translation it can help if you want to learn words and vocabulary sometimes, but you've got something specific you want to express, but not to actually just learn the language, I wouldn't say. Yeah, hi Keenan, nice to see you. Doing well, thank you. You? Ich muss auch meine Sprachen verbessern. Ja, okay. Zum Glück haben wir Zeit, ne? Ja, haben wir schon. Hoffentlich schon. Okay. Just going to go back and see on. Is it trying to interpret what someone thinks, learn to read, a good way to practice language? Yeah, you can do that in your head as kind of an example, rather than say that it's something that a number of people I've met do. They just automatically translate in their heads. I personally don't tend to do that very often unless I'm learning a language and I'm thinking of the words that I've learned and could I say that in that language? So sometimes I do that kind of thing. Otherwise, I tend to speak a language at one time, and when I'm not thinking, my neutral brain is in no language. Okay, I've got 2 minutes and I have to finish, unfortunately, because my time is up on Instagram. What's the prestige accent of French and Spanish spoken in North America? Okay. I don't know. Do you know any series for training the Spanish accent? I don't, Byron, unfortunately. I don't know. Prestige accent of French and Spanish spoken in North America. Well, I suppose, you'd have to ask somebody if there is such a thing in Quebec for Quebecois French, if that's what you mean. Of the Spanish, so Colombians always say that they speak the best Spanish. That's what they always say. And a lot of people say that Colombian Spanish is pretty clear. I'd say it is pretty clear, Colombian Spanish. Although, in terms of like people who speak it, people you meet and what you come across, Mexican Spanish is pretty cool. Yeah. Avez-vous étudié un diplôme en langue moderne à Jomelin 3 Lyon? Oui, en fait, c'était... Oui, j'ai fait 1 an, parce que j'ai fait LEA au Royaume-Uni et j'ai fait ELA aussi en France. Donc, un peu les deux choses, mais oui, j'ai fait en fait LEA à Jomelin 3. Mais j'ai fini mon diplôme au Royaume-Uni après. Faroese has been influenced by Danish a lot. Have you noticed that? No. No. Yes and no. Yes and no. It's. I mean, there's language continuums, I guess, and all these things happen. But yeah, yes and no. Okay. Unfortunately, I have to leave. But thank you all so much for joining me. And unfortunately, I think the Instagram has given up the ghost and it's not saving it for me. But it was very, very nice to see you all. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. I'll come back again at the same time. And thanks for joining me. Take care. See you soon, okay? Good luck. And sign up to the conference.